Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. Today I'm going to be showcasing what I think is the best loadout that you can equip for Cold War Zombies on launch. Now, this meta will shift through the year, A, as Treyarch release balance patches, nerfing certain guns and buffing certain other ones, and B, as Treyarch release new entire weapons. And so I highly recommend you subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss any updates for this in case I post a new updated loadout in the future. It's also important to understand why we're doing this, okay? So I'm going to be focusing on early and mid game in this video, because late game, we are not going to be using a loadout weapon. Currently, that is not what the meta supports, and as such, I'm kind of classifying mid game as maybe up to about round 25 or so, and then beyond that, I think you start entering late game territory. And to be clear, it's obvious, of course, that the loadout in your early game is going to be useful, but the mid game is really where these things come into their own, because at that point, you're not so likely to get the most powerful weapons out of the box. So, for instance, the ray gun, right? The best weapon in the game right now, in my opinion. It's incredibly strong. You can go to round 100 with it, and it just keeps killing. It's insane, but at an early round, you are less likely to roll it, and as such, we need something to fill that gap and get us to that kind of round 25 point, and we want to do so with the best setup possible without that legendary weapon in as little time as possible, and so the loadout is just key for doing that. So, what's the loadout? Well, the weapon is the Gallo SA-12 shotgun, and the field upgrade that I'm going to be recommending here is Ether Shroud. The field upgrade obviously is very customizable to how you like to play, and it will affect your late game too, so if you've got a particular strat in the late game that requires you to have healing aura with your teammates going down all the time or something, then absolutely use that. But my personal preference for getting out of jail free in certain sticky situations is Ether Shroud. I do have a whole video talking about all the field upgrades, so if you need help picking one of those, I'm going to link you that in the description down below and in the top right hand corner of the screen right now. But let's talk about the weapon, because that's the important thing here. On the Gallo, there are 7 different attachments. We can only equip 5, and so we basically need to pick 2 categories that don't get any love. The first easy category to avoid is the handle one, because it gives us aim down sight time and stuff for like going to prone and flinch resistance, not stuff that is going to transform the use of your shotgun. You're not going to be quick scoping with it, so we're going to avoid having a handle. And then the second one to avoid is actually a choice for you. If you really like optics, then you can put an optic on this, and that will help you get your headshots, which will mean that you'll point build faster, because remember, point building in this game is different to previous games, and you need to be going for those headshots or crit kills, and a sight will in theory help you do that. So I'd pick the microflex here if I was a sight person. However, there's an equivalent option you could choose if you're going to be aiming down sights with the iron sights. That's totally fine, and that's the muzzle. Now in here, you can get stuff that increases your equipment drop rate and gives you no negatives, which is so good. If you're the sort of person that's really focused on the equipment that the zombies are dropping as you kill them through your game, then this could be a fantastic swap for your sight. However, a downside here is that if you're using lots of equipment on zombies, you're not going to be getting those precision kills, those crit kills, and as such, you will point build less. So there is a trade-off here if that's your playstyle, but if you want to go down that route, then I'd say the Flash Cone 12GA is your best shout. I think basically best in this category to avoid adding too many negatives, and so we're picking one with no negatives for your weapon. Now that you've chosen an optic or a muzzle, we can pick our barrel, body, magazine, and stock. The best barrel is the 24.8 Task Force, in my opinion, hands down, because within 5 meters, it's nearly going to double your pellet damage, which is crazy, and you compare it to the other things in this category, and they do things like increasing your damage range, so instead of that 5 meters, it would be more like 6, 7, or 8. But in my opinion, in early game, you're going to be able to get close to the zombies because they're slow, and so a long damage range is not necessary. And in mid-game, the zombies are going to be on your tail the whole time anyway. They're not going to be really far away from you, and so you don't need to buff the effective damage range but keep the pellet damage low. You want to make it so that you're very potent when the zombies are close to you, and that's exactly what the 24.8 Task Force does. Next, the body. We're going to be recommending the Ember Sighting Point, which gives you increased salvage drop rate, which will be so useful for when you're using this thing still in your mid-game, and it also gives you hip-fire accuracy as well, which is nice because it reduces your sprint to fire time and your ADS time. So in that 10% slower sprint to fire or ADS, you can just get off a hip fire, which is going to be more accurate anyway, and so you're not really losing out, and you're getting a nice increase to your salvage drop rate. The magazine is a really easy choice. We're going for the Stanag 12-round tube. Yes, it decreases your reload quickness, but think of it like this. In the early game, you don't need to reload super duper fast because the zombies are slow, and this thing is going to stomp on them anyway, so you're fine. In the mid game, you're going to A, probably be getting speed cola anyway, but then B, also likely pack pack-a-punching this at least once, and as such, your reload quickness becomes a lot less important because you reload multiple shells at once when you pack it, so it really doesn't affect you that much. The pros massively outweigh that little tiny con. You get more mag ammo capacity, so you need to reload less often anyway, and you get more ammo capacity. I mean, this thing is just really, really easy. Pick the Stanag 12-round tube. For the last attachment, the stock, I recommend the Marathon stock. It is going to reduce our hipfire accuracy, but we're still going to be getting a net buff because of the attachments that we put on previously, and the buffs on it are aim walking move speed, sprint to fire time, shooting move speed, and sprinting move speed. This means our sprint to fire time is actually net gained because of that previous attachment, like I said, and you have extra sprinting move speed and shooting move speed, which is so huge for the mid-game as well. Remember, early game doesn't matter, zombies are slow, but mid-game you need to be moving and shooting at the same time, and this is going to make your life just a little bit easier in that area. Okay, the proof is in the pudding. Let's talk numbers and how this thing compares to, for example, the $2,000 blue Gallo SA-12 that you can buy in the crash site area of the map. The weapon on the wall will have 3 random attachments. Now, if you think that they are pure random in the way that those attachments are chosen, that means that in order to get the 3 highest DPS increasing attachments, you have a 1 in 35 chance of just getting the right attachment slot, not even the attachment within the slot category. It's crazy low, and that's based on the assumption that it's an even chance across everything. I think it might actually be even worse than that, because I've rolled this thing over and over again, and I pretty much always get a sight on it, which is not increasing DPS. It's one of the options that is useful. It's handy sort of thing, but it could have been subbed out like I said before, so it's a non-essential. And I am yet to receive, and I've bought this thing loads, a 12-round magazine on this. I either have the base magazine with no extra mag size, which is 7, or I have the buffed mag size, which is 9, but I never have the best one. I don't at this time know if Treyarch are weighting the random chances of getting certain attributes with higher efficacies, but it certainly seems to be apparent from the gameplay that I've played that the chances of you getting the perfect spin from this thing off the wall are pretty damn low. There is, of course, the attachment reroll, but at that point you're sinking $2,000 and a load of time into rerolling and a load of time into worrying about RNG into a gun when you could just be spawning in with it. It seems like an unworthy trade-off, especially if it's not as strong, and as we're about to find out, I do indeed believe that the loadout gun, even though it's a lower weapon rarity, is better here. The best way to demonstrate this is just to show you the numbers. So around round 25, and this is with double pap on both the wall gun version and the loadout version of this weapon, I can get around 3,000 to 6,000 damage in the head on our loadout gun. It absolutely melts hordes. It's not going to have a problem at all at that round, and this is beginning to be the sort of round that you'd think about getting rid of this thing in order to get your ray guns, so the fact that it's completely effective at that point is fantastic, and bear in mind, this is with the bigger magazine than you're going to be getting in the wall gun version also, so you can spray through hordes a lot more easily because of that. The wall gun version, in my experience, does significantly less damage. You're going to be doing like 1,000 in the body and maybe 2,000, 3,000 in the head, but it's so much lower. And again, depending on attachments that you can randomly roll on this thing, maybe the wall gun one will have slightly higher numbers, but in my experience, it still tests out lower than our loadout version, which just goes to show that this loadout kicks ass. If you're concerned that Pack-a-Punch is messing up the numbers here at all, at earlier rounds, like on around 16, 17, it is still going to be doing more damage unpack-a-punched at base, not upgraded, than that wall weapon at base. So it's better in both kind of categories there, both scenarios. At this point, some of you might be asking if there's another shotgun that would be better than this one even, and the answer to that right now is no, in my opinion. I think that the other shotgun that is unlocked at a lower rank, don't get me wrong, that's a good thing, but it's just not something you can compare to this one. This Gallo is so incredibly strong. The fact that you can just keep on firing it, you can spray and pray, it's just so good. The damage is so high. You can use it all the way to the beginning of your late game session and grab your ray gun at a higher round when you've got higher chances for it and live happily ever after. It's just fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about this shotgun in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more loadout videos from me, in depth, looking at the numbers, figuring out percentages, and random chances and all sorts of stuff, then absolutely let me know in the comments down below, because I'd love to make some gun guides for zombies this year. I feel like that could be so fun. So yeah, let me know, guys. Thanks for watching. Drop a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe too, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.